All right, today we're gonna get our feet wet with a brand new technique and a tool that I think that you might love even better than our dome brush. And we have some new things to do with masking. You're gonna love this lesson. Ooh, one more thing. Wet sanding is your best friend. All right, guys, let's get started. First thing you wanna do is you wanna prep your board. So I noticed that the cut from the saw did a whole bunch of little chips down here at the bottom, so I'm gonna need to sand. So we'll take our 60 grit sandpaper and we'll just rough that up and get it nice and smooth so nobody gets splinters. You always go with the grain of the wood. If you're not particularly handy and don't happen to have table saws and things like that, most of your big box stores will cut these boards for you. One thing that you do want to do, if you notice when I was sanding, this board is not extremely perfectly flat. It's not bad though. So what you do is you look down the edge, and sometimes the boards will be twisted. You don't want the twisted ones. And this is not flat, but it's definitely not twisted, so it's a pretty good board. So we'll get that sanded, and while I'm sanding, flip it over, get the other side. See if you have anything else that's standing out to you that needs to be knocked back. This board is actually a really nice board. Okay, and then what we're gonna do next is we're going to treat our knots. If you don't treat your knots, they will bleed through your paint. This happens all the time, so you have to treat the knots. And the product that we use is this one that is a bullseye shellac. I don't know why this works. All I do know is it does work. So this is the one that we prefer. And this is my fancy schmancy glove. So what we do is we just put our hand in there, open our shellac up. And I have learned the hard way that just having a stick or a stirrer is the best way to get this blended up. This product will remove the paint color on your paint brushes. So then what I'll do is I'll just wipe this off onto paper towel, and I'll let that dry, and then I'll just reuse it each time. Okay, now we're gonna use our fancy paintbrush, AKA paper towel, and we're going to just put this over all these knots. Just rub it in. You don't need to put it everywhere. You could put it everywhere if you wanted to. I'm going to be using stain for my first coat on this kind of rustic looking seafair kind of look. And when I do that, normally if I was going to stain this board and have the stain show, then I would go ahead and stain it first, and then I would do this shellac step on top of the stain and then continue on with my project. This will not allow the stain to penetrate into that area. So it's basically sealing it, and so you'll have a really splotchy look. So be careful with that. Okay, I've finished the shellac. I'm gonna allow this to dry. And then one thing I want to point out is these tall porch signs are super cool because they are reversible. And so you can paint on both sides, so you get double bang for your buck. All right, I'm all dry now, and we're gonna take our foam brush. This is a poly foam brush. They are definitely built differently than cheap foam brushes. These have really good resistance so that you can really spread your medium. When you're staining, you can add water. This is a water-based brown stain. You can add water to this if you want it to be sheerer, instead of like a base coat. So I think I am gonna do that. I'm gonna go about 50% with water. You can actually add water to, ooh, hi. We've got a little flood situation going. This board, my table is not level. Whee! I'm gonna need to get started. Okay, so I'm gonna smear that. See how much darker that would have been. Now, because this is a water-based stain, that issue about the soaking in isn't applicable because this stain is sitting on top and not underneath. It's not penetrating through the board. And you want to kind of work fast if you were going to see this. So I'm going to cover this with another coat of paint, and this is going to be the under. But if you were just staining it, you would want to work fast to not have these lines stick in there. And one way that you can get by with doing that is just to give it a little mist so that you can continue spreading. Okay, this is beginning to show where I had the bullseye. So one thing I would have done differently if I'd have thought or that it would actually make a difference is go ahead and do your staining first and then put your bullseye on top. All right, my board is dry and now we're going to do a creamy color. This is an acrylic paint and these are honey bottles. We can put an affiliate link down below for the bottles. And I'm going to use a roller. This is a dense foam roller, and that makes a really nice, fast applicator. Okay, so get that there. And now I'm going to cover the whole thing. We'll probably take 2 coats, and we're going to sand through it to make a distressed background. All right, so my coat looks pretty even. I could do a 3rd coat, but I think that this is fine. To keep your roller dry, or to keep it from drying, put it in one of these flat fold top Ziploc baggies and just burp out all the air. And that will keep that fresh if you have another project to follow up with. And what I want to do is show you a really cool technique. We're going to wet sand while the paint is drying with our really rough grits. That's 60 grit sandpaper on our sanding block. We'll put an affiliate link in the description. And this is going to wreck this piece of sandpaper, but it's a really great technique. So I'm going to, no place to hold on. So that just, see how that just peels that paint back. I can do it rougher in some areas. This is a fabulous technique. And see what's happening to my sander. Ooh, be careful, keep straight lines. So these lines are pattern, and you want to make sure that you keep your flow of your pattern going in the same direction. If you start doing gnarly things, then you're going to make the eye travel places you might not want it to travel. Now I'm just looking to see where I want to add detail. And then I've got a little bit of patterning going on over here. And you know what's doing that is this sandpaper, that the parts in the paint on the sandpaper is creating that line. Let me see if I can just smooth those out. I can probably do that when it's dry. Okay. I'll leave the rest of it until I get my stencils on here and I see where I want to have accents and all of that. And in the meantime, I'll get to changing this. All right, everybody. So now we have our board dry and we're ready to kind of dry fit our stencil. So our stencil comes in multiple parts. Just to cut a big old long giant thing would not work for most machines. So we make sure that our words are upside right. I almost put my sailboat on backwards. So make sure that you're looking at that etched line right there. And then we have etched lines that will line up the different bits. And in this case, my etched line and the bit, I don't want it to jump that far. Well, I guess I could have it that far down. You can decide. So you can move the whole thing up, the whole thing down, however you want it. But the dry fit is super helpful so that you make sure that you have your lake spelled with your letters going in the right direction and that kind of thing. Okay, so we are going to take away the different bits and we're going to move our board so you can actually see it. And we're going to start with the bottom piece. And we've got a brand new, really cool thing that we have. And that is mylar that is going to be a giant multimasker. So multimaskers have immediately become one of our best sellers. But when we have a really long line like this, whatever this beam called in a ship, when we have that kind of thing, we want to make sure that we can mask it. And I don't want to tape. Tape is just, you're going to waste it. It's expensive, that kind of thing. Our stencil material, the mylar, is reusable and washable and all the things. Is durable. So you can just wash off the paint and you have a masker that will work for you over and over again. So we're going to start with our sails. And we're going to do some securing. We are going to use a little bit of tape, but we're just going to be securing with it. So we want to give us a little tapey poo at the top and a tapey poo through a wave. When you tape in two spots, it secures the board. And then we can also give a little nod to the sail. And we'll tape the masker down. Okay, and so that will give us that. We are also in a supply chain world that we're currently, never heard the word supply chain before till the last 2 years. But so in the supply chain world, the palette paper has become unavailable. This is my favorite way to use a palette to do the paints. So we are going to use a scrap piece of mylar as it's taped down on the board. We're going to use that mylar as a palette, and then you can rinse that off, you can wash it off, and it's reusable. And then maybe we've saved some trees somewhere along the line. We've done something good, and I'm going to go with that. So what we're going to do is we're going to use an orangey color to darken our yellowy color. So we're going to shake, and I'm going to kind of take us out of tradition here. Normally what we do is when we have a big open area like that, we're going to use our largest stencil size. I'm going to take us another direction, show you another tool that will, I don't know what these things are called, but eesh, that's a mess. Get rid of that. So when you're mixing paints, you're going to put a little bit on your palette. I only want to tone this just an ever so slightly bit. That is going to, we're going to slide just a little bit in. We want it just a tone different. Always bring the dark into your light very timidly, okay? You don't want it to be a strong, strong thing. I think just a little bit more. And I'm going to bring the rest of it, but you never know. So please always err on the side of just a little bit. All right, we'll take this, bring it over here. We're going to wipe that off. And now I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna grab a jumbo dauber. So jumbo daubers are amazing because they will act like a dome brush because they are shaped in a dome and they don't gain a lot of the paint. They don't grab the paint and glom it on like a roller or anything like that. They're very, very dense and they're super reusable. You can wash them over and over again. So I'm gonna pick up a little bit of that paint. And the other benefit is I don't really have to offload it over here on my paper towel. I can just kind of blend it around and just pick up ever so slight amount. And then it will suction and pick up. So I want to be careful with this piece of masking that we don't pick that up. And I will bring a multi-masker in here. So I want to, this piece is black in our example. And what I like about this is because you're pouncing, it does cover really fast. If you get really dry, everything will start suctioning up. So you want to be careful about that. And if you get uneven coverage, you just kind of blend it by tapping. And that tapping, will do one more coat on this. And that tapping will be very even then. And I can already see it happening here. Big areas are really a little bit, kind of, you got to navigate them. And ha ha ha, we got lake stuff and boats with navigating. But you have to just know what you're dealing with, and that's a good reason to watch these videos so that you have knowledge ahead of time. I'm gonna go over here. The camera's on this side, so I'm trying not to block. I may have to just block. I can also kind of lean it away from this piece. And then over here, I can hold that down and lean it that way. So I'm not suctioning it off. This coverage would be almost impossible to get with the dome brush. You can do it. You'd have to swirl and then swirl and then swirl and then swirl and then swirl. And you'd offload and offload and offload. So we're having a lot less waste right now. And we are happy to have that. So now I think get another masker. I believe this is where we switch to the black color. I actually have not put it together yet that doing these large areas would be so much more efficient for paint use until just now in this video. I'm just doing that right in real time. This is a really good reason to use these jumbo daubers. Okay, so I've got that done. We're gonna go ahead, go back up to the top and hold that masker down, or that masker, and then repeat with the dauber. Hold that down. Try not to block your view. This is amazing, having this really long masking tool with the little multi-maskers, kind of game changing. All right, and then we'll come back over here, pull this guy down. Sometimes with these really round, larger tools, they might not go all the way to the edge. So sometimes you might need to take out one of our dome brushes and then just stipple along the edge. But this looks like it's doing a really good job. So I don't believe we need to do that. I'm just going to even it out. Blending has never been easier with one of these jumbo daubers. Okay, so now we untape, lift, and now that side is going to be wet. Okay, so we want to be really careful with wet paint on this. We can rinse it off. We can use the other side. So we have two sides to this, so we're going to use the other side. But first I have to dry this paint. So we're going to go off camera. I'm going to give it a blow dry and we'll be right back. All right, here we go. So I've got that dry. We're going to switch sides and switch tape sides as well. I like to use the tape as a little bit of a lifting tool. So we're going to go right over on that sail. And did I get too far over? You want to be able to see some of your stencil. Okay. And then I'm going to definitely keep the multi-masker handy because I've got to mask this part as well. Just so he stays in place. Now I can neutralize my jumbo dauber. So I can go here and I can just stamp it out and just neutralize it. No water needed. Okay, and then I'm going to go into the yellow paint and I'm going to flip this over and I'm going to let it just stamp out, and it's going to become more of the yellow color than it is the goldenrod color, if you will. And so now I'm neutralized and I don't have to worry about that color being too strong or too much like the other color. When you start getting into skinnier areas, you're going to want to switch to the dome brushes. I've got another area here. This is just nice to not have to worry about controlling how big my dauber is, or, you know, how much swirling I'm doing or anything like that. This is just a really nice couple of tools. And I've got to tell you, I think I am adoring how much less paint I am not wasting doing the jumbo dauber. Okay, hold this down. It is nice to have everything going where you're putting it. This will not work with small areas like lettering and stuff like that, so you're still going to have to do the offload on the palette. But super nice for the big areas. Do a second coat. So I have an example that one of our designers made. Elaine is amazing. And it's a little bit more faded than how I'm painting this. And something that is super cool, I'm going to show you later as we get through the project. I'm going to show you how to tone down your painting with a couple of extra little steps that will make it look faded and aged and old and weathered and stuff like that. As we are moving our way up, I want to get the sun done because there's birds that are in a dark color over our sun, and so I want to have the sun done before I do the other pieces. And I'm going to show you a really cool way to get your drop shadow effect without having to do anything extra to these letters. Carrie keeps reminding me I know how to do this and I always forget, and so I need to show you guys so that you remember that you know how to do this because it's cool. So we're going to go here and we are going to lay this on. We have etched lines for you to line up your stencil. And one thing that you want to be careful about doing is, so this isn't always going to fit like right with your board, but you want to just jimmer-jammer it around just a little bit so that you get it exactly where you want it. So your board might be narrower, it might be barnwood, it might be plywood, it might be all kinds of things. You just need to adjust it so that you like where the placement is. Don't get fixated on whether or not the thing just lines up perfectly in all the directions. So as we're doing this, I'm lining it up, and then I'm trying to make sure that I am keeping a straight line going up the side of my project. And line that up. That's where those etched lines are so handy. And then I want to make sure I still feel like that's straight. A lot of times it'll look lined up, and then you'll like find that it's twisted right off the edge up here. So be really careful with that to be able to keep it straight. And then we'll give it a couple of pieces of tape. And you can tape, you don't have to tape the edges. That blew my hippie noodle, but you can tape inside these letters, and that will stabilize everything just fine. Okay, so we're gonna go in with this goldenrod color, but first we're gonna do the sunshine because that is the color already in our dauber. So far we've done 2 colors, same dauber. We're gonna go into the same sun color, switch back to the welcome color, and that is going to be all with 1 dauber. And so you can use it dirty and just neutralize as long as your color family is basically the same. Okay, so here we go. So we're gonna put the little nosy nose. That's the best piece. I think that piece fits well. And then be careful that you don't transfer some of this shape of the dauber to your project. So you're gonna wanna lift it up, and then I always wipe it off so that I don't get an extra shape. And then we'll change directions. Can't really move up here because then we're going to change the color of this. So I'm going to put that down, and I'm going to give this a blow dry. I want a second coat on there. One of the things that's really cool about these daubers is like 2 fingers fit in there perfectly. And it is, you can do 1, and it has these perfect little baffles to keep your fingers out of your paint. They're really well designed. Really kind of an amazing tool. Yeah, we'll do this guy. Down. This is designed so that you have lots of undulating little patterns, and you can usually find something that fits perfectly to mask the things. You've got sharp angles, you've got round angles, straight angles. You can even do a whole banding thing with that. These are an amazing little tool, and they're super washable, super durable, just like our stencils. So our stencils just became the tool that you use for your stencils. I love that. And it's just become your palette paper as well. Okay. That is that. Now we're going to go in to our darker color. We're going to do the same thing that we did before. Going to neutralize, push out all that paint. Notice it's not super sloppy. I love that about this tool because it does not carry a lot of paint. So we'll go here on our welcome. I'll hold down the top because I don't really have it taped down. I told you this wouldn't work on lettering, but it's working pretty darn good on lettering. I think it would get the detail a little bit better with the dome brush, so I will switch to that after I get this initial coat. But it's doing a pretty darn good job of that first coat. And since it's already dirty, and I don't have to waste the paint off on the paper towel, I'm kind of liking this as a initial like covering thing. So now this is going to go into the water because after this color, I'm done with this color. So we'll just dunk it in there, and then I just kind of sink it with a foam brush or whatever just to make sure it's submerged under the water. And then I'll switch to the dome brush, and I have to mix a little bit more color. So we'll put out a little bit of that. Don't need very much for that, so. We're ready to go with our mixed color. Offload. Whenever you're using a dome brush, you want to offload onto your paper towel. And then I'm just going to use a swirling technique. And that's going to get over to my edges. Take a peek. Looks fabulous. I think maybe just a little bit more right there. And I think I'm seeing just a little bit of splotchy down here. So I'm just going to go ahead and even him out. Oops. Okay. And then we're going to go work on some black color. And we're going to use maskers to do all of this. So we're going to go over here. There is nothing, there are probably many things worse than having to mask a very busy pattern with a bunch of tape. Okay, that is like really literally just like such a pain. So these maskers will take the pain out of masking, and it will save your little bacon. Okay, so I'm going to use this masker down here, and then we'll have to move him. Just get little teeny pieces of tape that you can keep using. Okay, and I think that this might be just the right size for a dome brush. Get out some black paint. This is acrylic paint, and we put it in honey bottles. We can put a link down below for you. It'll be an affiliate link. We don't carry these on our website, and our website is studior12.com. And if you love all the things we're teaching you, then make sure that you subscribe and ring the bell, and then you will get notified when we have new content. And we try so hard to make everything just be such different things than you can find other places. So we're teaching you all the things. We love doing it. Okay, we'll put the black on, wipe the black off. Okay, wax on, wax off. Okay, and then we'll scumble. I'm gonna move my hand to keep everything secure. This is a really long bridged piece. I'm gonna go ahead and just hang on to it in the middle. We like it to be so unbridged, but we want it to be so secure. So it's super important that you know that sometimes you just have to hang on to some things. Come here. Lift up. I love that all these different angles just mesh with everything we're doing. Okay, and then we go again. And now here we can go ahead and start stippling to give a little bit more of coverage. And when you're looking for those boards, look for flat ones. You could pad that with a little bit of like a towel underneath or something like that. So I do that honestly with like cutting boards when they start getting a little bit warped and stuff at home. All right, so now we're going to take the tall masker and we're going to mask off the sail. I'm going to take this guy out because he's not even painted yet. And we don't want that to be in fresh paint that's wet. So take that off and put him there. Press him down. Take the other side. And we'll mask that off when we get there. A couple more pieces of little tape. I love that the little tape is reusable. That makes such a difference. And we'll go right up the middle. When you have skinnier lines, you're going to want to be stippling rather than swirling. All right, ready for round number 3. Sometimes when you're doing dark colors on top of really light colors, it can be kind of a bummer. So now I'm just going to scumble and swirl. Just even out the tones. And then we have it. Okay, so we're going to take this mask away and we're going to have to do a little bit of detail work right over here. A teeny bit of extra stuff going on right there. And see how that just organically just follows that line. It's magic. We will have to do 3 coats. Wait, 3 coats. All right, presto changeo. Here we go. All right, so now we have the things. I think we are, I think maybe down here on this boat, we need a little bit more evening. I think the jumbo dauber does a perfect job, but I think that having a little bit of evening up after it dries is a good idea. So that just kind of makes everybody perfect. All right, so we're going to take this guy off. Actually, we're not. We're going to come up here and we're going to finish the black pieces on this part. All right, so I forgot a couple places. So we've got these little swirls here and this jib jab, whatever this thing is. And my board is super singing songs right now. So we're going to take our daubers or our multimaskers and we are going to mask the general location. And then we'll fine tune it with a little bit of a close-up. Ha. And then we will do one more coat. Ha. Shh. Get that off. And find the little mask that will make that work and slide him over. I love all these angles. If I had to stop and tape all these angles, we've done this at Boardroom, that's our shop in town. We have done this for years. And with the really detailed things, you take a tape and 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 it inside, outside, then you take it all off and then you do the in-betweens and all of that. So our teachers actually cried when we gave them these. They just were like absolutely overwhelmed with joy. It was amazing. Okay, so we'll go out of that area and we're gonna get this area. And make sure we don't knock, knock. Okay, so we've got these. Give them one more coat. Always make sure the back side is clean if you are moving around a more complex stencil. One more. Okay. While we're waiting for that to dry. So this is what you do with these tall porch signs, is you just kind of navigate up and down while paint is drying to see where you can paint next without blow drying all the time and doing all that stuff. So we're going to go over to our under letters under the welcome. I'm going to go here and figure out how we'll mask that. Probably going to take 2. And you just kind of work in bits. And this guy looks like a natural. Beep. Up here. All right, now we're ready to move to the middle. And I think I'm going to go ahead and get my bird on there. Check my line for even and give him the bird. All right, we're gonna dunk that in some water, and now we are going to do the drop shadow. This is the trick that I always forget that I know how to do. I don't need to worry about the bottom piece. I am actually gonna leave him in place, but we have the sun, we have the bird, we have the birds, and we have all this stuff, and then we have these letters. What we used to do is we would move the stencil over, and then we would base it and then move it back and then base it another color, and it would take 2 or 3 coats and all that kind of stuff. So right now what we're going to do is we're going to use these painted elements to be the drop shadow moving device. Okay, so we're going to take this off. And look how pretty, and you got a stray hair. When your paint is dry, you can just brush those right away. So now what we want to do is we want to put the drop shadow in first so we don't have to base over everything again. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use the stencil. Up here's a really good example of that drop shadow. I've moved it over to the left and down. And you can see it on these letters and these letters. And really important to watch your tracking on the side. Make sure you stay straight. Okay, so I'm going to move this tape off of here down to there, and I need one more tapey, and I'll just put that over here on the edge. Now my stencil is secure, so I've got the same amount of reveal on all of these things, and when I do this on here, it's going to give me that reveal. I could have saved that brush from my water bin and just use it because we're doing black drop shadow, so I didn't think ahead on that one. So we'll go in to a new brush. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my drop shadow on the sides and on the bottom. And you got to make sure you do it on the top that has a side. So this has got a left side because of its loop up. So you want to make sure that you do that side. And I'll do it on the A. Okay, and start, and then here we go. Okay, it's exciting. This is such a great technique because you don't want to be spending all of your stinking time basing and then rebasing and then basing and rebasing. So this is just an amazing technique. Okay, so this is what it looks like right now. I'm going to hit the blow dryer and then I'll be right back and I'll show you how to finish that, and then I'll finish these off camera. All right, so we have to line up the original stencil perfectly. So I really like to use the tape as a lining tool. It allows me to kind of nudge just a little bit. Sometimes things get sticky. I'm gonna go with that. And then now we're going to go into our teal. And I'm going to leave this brush out for a hot second because I'm going to finish my letters. And on our teal, we want to tone the teal just a little bit. So shaky, shaky. And we're going to bring in a little bit of this kind of oxblood color because that's opposite on the color wheel. Just want that to tone down and not be screaming Mimi. That's much better. I think that'll go nicely. Okay, so we'll get into our teal. And then we'll go here. Honestly, this might be a really good, I'm going to call it and say, really good reason to use a dauber. These are ginormous letters. So I think we'll call that and just get them done in way more time, like it's way faster. Ooh, hi. Picked up a lot of paint. And this does such a nice light coat. Way faster. All right, we're gonna dry it and get a couple more coats on there. I'm gonna finish my letters and we're gonna do our reveal. All right, so as I get down here on the waves, I'm gonna make those in that same teal color. What I like about the teal color is we walk it all the way down the piece, down to the bottom. The black walks all the way up and the yellow does the same. So that's a really good way to share the harmony of all your colors. However, as I'm looking at the deep turn of these waves, I realize that my multimasker is going to be a little bit tasked to make that turn. I don't have any of the angles that I would need. So what I'm going to do is I've got 3 of them here. I don't know what we've got them for retail, but I know that they're super affordable. I'm going to just use 3 to get around that curve right there. And that should get me where I need to be. Stipple. That clears that black area, and then I can get the rest of it without any problem. Swirl, I'm gonna go up there and swirl just a little bit. I like to swirl first also for evening the tone out. Get these guys. Get the waves all the way down to the bottom. We'll dry it, we'll give it a second coat, and that is how you use a triple masking to mask a wild wave. Now it's time to reveal all the things. So we're gonna take our maskers away. And you can wash these and use them over and over and over and over again, so you don't have to worry about getting a bunch of gunk on them. Just give them a wash. And there's a video for that. We'll link it down below. All right, and then we're gonna go reveal our letters and our boat. Aha! Huzzah! Love it. Okay, our stencils are reusable. So if you live at a lake, then you probably have friends that live at the lake. Do a different version of this in the colors that they love, and you can reuse that stencil. Boards are super cheap to buy, and they're reversible. So if you have somebody that's into Christmas in a big way, then you can Christmas it up. If you've got somebody that's into Easter in a big way, you can do that on the other side. Reusable boards, I love it. You can flip them over and do the thing. Okay, so now we're gonna get our sander. I'm gonna use the 60 grit, but I'm gonna be a little cautious with it. This is very weighted. You can see how that drops. It's super heavy, so I'm going to use this with just like soft pressure in my hand. So our board looks like it's been aged. I want everything else to look a little bit aged, but I don't want to erase it. Just enough. Yeah, that's perfect. This is almost as big of a painting technique as the painting is. So you can sand and create all kinds of white areas and that kind of thing. So make sure you're sanding in line with all of your lines that you've already put. Okay, and that's making that look nice and worn. Let me get rid of this. Let's talk about white area. And let's go here. I've got a lot of big open area over here. So I can give that a sand and give it a little bit more texture right there to take the weight out of that area. Okay, and I can do a little bit more here. Sanding is your cardio. Okay, and then we can go over on this side. Yeah, and that just makes everything a little bit more balanced. And then let's do an antiquing technique. Let's go into a foam brush. Thought I had one there. This piece of mylar as a palette paper has been brilliant. I didn't run out of space. I was getting ready to run out of space, but really a neat idea and reusable. I love anything that we can do to save trees and, I don't know, plastic, scrap, and things like that. So, okay, we're gonna go into our foam brush. It's dry. We're gonna get black right on the tip. And I'm going to pounce it off on my palette. I back this out. This is something that you probably want to try on an Amazon box or a whatever scrap piece of something, because it takes a certain little flick of your wrist. And so what we're going to do is we're going to grab the end and we're going to flick up, and we want to make them different lengths. We don't want a unibrow across here. So we're going to just grab that and then adjust our pressure accordingly. So some are going to be longer, some are going to be shorter. This kind of serves to anchor the top and bottom of the board. And then we can go down our sides. Yeah, I'm liking that. If we get some in the middle, that's okay. We can be a little wild over here where it's got bigger space. If you mess up, let's take this for a second. I think this is almost as important as the technique itself. Pretend like you don't want this one. Go sand it back. Easy, easy peasy. If you can't sand it back, then go back to the base coat, give it a little flick of the base coat, sand through it, and you're gonna be fine. So every time you feel like, ooh, I went one step too far, make sure you just go back one step to where you were before. So before I did that black, I was this color. So I can go back to this color. I also was this color with sanding. So sand, then that color, take a couple steps backwards, and then you're gonna be level on level ground again, and then you'll be able to continue on. All the way down. And then I like to flick towards me. So we're going to do a big old whoop-de-doo here. And go on the bottom and repeat. Rinse and repeat. Ooh, hi. What do? We take our sander. Just tone that down just a hot second. Okay. And I think because it's at the bottom, I don't think I'm worried about that weight. Like it. You guys, this has been so much fun. I am so excited to share all these techniques with you. I am excited about this new palette paper, and the maskers make everything just so much easier. I hope that you enjoyed. Make sure you give us likes and ring the bell and subscribe so that you can be notified when we have new content.